Art block. It's when a creative person doesn't feel like they can create right now. Nothing seems to come out, they feel devoid of ideas, or like they have no inspiration. I often feel like this. A few years ago I used to spend 3 to 4 hours a day working on one drawing. However, in these past few months, the most I was able to draw was perhaps 2 hours every few days. And when I open a new canvas, I oftentimes really feel lost about what to draw. Art block has been something that has accompanied me for quite a long time now, and I think I've found some ways to at least deal with it. In 2021 to 22, my art experienced the most improvement because I focused heavily on studying the art fundamentals. Value, anatomy, perspective, gesture. I improved at all of these rapidly, but after a few months of intense practice, I burnt out. Every time I turned on my drawing tablet and picked up the pen again, my body would feel really hot and itchy, and I would feel very uncomfortable sitting in my chair. The most extreme point was when sometimes I would get these itch attacks for a couple of seconds where my head felt like it was pricked with tiny needles. I pretty much stopped drawing after that for about 5 months. This probably was a case of art block, where just looking at an empty canvas made me feel uncomfortable already. Currently I can draw comfortably again, mainly due to me realizing how to avoid art blocks, or at least alleviate them when I feel like I'm getting myself into an artistic rut. The first realization I had was that I shouldn't force myself to draw. Of course, studying fundamentals and drawing for multiple hours does necessitate some level of discipline at least, but that should only happen to a certain extent. When studying art, it's important to find a right balance between learning and playing. There is this quote from Bezos that I quite like, which goes like this: "One who travels the fastest travels alone, but the one that travels the furthest travels with others." For art it's similar, I believe, but instead of a good company, enjoyment and fun is what is important. So the quote would probably go something like this: "One who travels the fastest travels alone, but the one that travels the furthest travels with joy." So you should enjoy drawing. But how can you consciously do that? Or one thing that helped me was changing my current art style. Before, I was really hell-bent on getting this realistic rendering the materials correctly and showing the perspective accurately. Now I'm much more carefree. I don't use any strict line art anymore. I don't need to get the lighting to appear perfectly realistic. This way it feels much more liberating to draw, when you can just draw whatever and however you like. An example of changing my art style to make it less constricting is what you can see in the background here. This is a completely different style from my usual drawings, and the usual expectations and rules I've put on myself don't apply here because I draw completely differently here. So if you're in an art block, maybe it's your current approach to drawing that makes you feel exhausted. Try something different. In my case, I'm currently following Yuna Yu's tutorial on how to draw in her cute style. Another advantage of following a tutorial is that most of the important decisions you usually have to make while drawing fall to the one who made the tutorial. You yourself don't have to spend mental power to think about what type of colors to use, what kind of style to apply, what kind of lighting scenario to apply, whether to draw the face cutely or more realistically. You don't have to make any of these decisions yourself, so a lot of the mental burden disappears when following a tutorial. Needless to say, mental stress is a big factor for art blocks, so maybe try following some tutorials. The next advice I can give you is to draw whatever you like. Perhaps you started drawing because you wanted to make fan art of this one anime you once saw. But now you're only trying to improve at drawing, so you only ever practice without ever stopping to create that fan art you wanted to draw, because you feel like your skill level isn't quite there yet. Or perhaps the thing you'd like to draw isn't something that you could post on social media, so you just don't draw it. If that's the case, then how about consciously creating a drawing that is not meant for social media? You won't upload it anywhere and at most show it to your friends. I myself have some drawings that I haven't uploaded or shown on social media. Generally just draw whatever gives you the most joy. Of course, studying and improving is important, but not as important as enjoying the process of drawing, right? Also, as mentioned earlier, the one who travels furthest travels with joy. Next advice: stay mostly within your comfort zone. You don't have to try a completely new lighting scenario in every new illustration. You also don't have to come up with a wholly new dynamic pose to draw your character in. Even if the final image you're imagining in your head looks great, if you make a drawing too challenging, you are probably just gonna give up and scrap it during the process. There is nothing shameful about drawing a pose similar to the one you've used in another drawing already, or using a lighting scenario that you drew in the last illustration as well. Of course, in order to improve, you need to step a little out of your comfort zone, but the emphasis here is on a little. The answer here is, once again, the right balance between practice and play, or rather comfort and challenge. The next time you create a drawing, don't feel bad about reusing a pose or creating a drawing with a similar vibe to your previous one. Another thing that can really destroy the motivation or inspiration to draw is social media. This is something I've noticed with myself, so this might only be a personal thing. But whenever I spend an extended amount of time watching YouTube videos, scrolling on Instagram, looking at the amount of subscribers on this YouTube channel, etc., it saps a lot of motivation every time I do that. I'm not sure about the reason, but getting off social media for a while has always helped me feel more inspired to draw. There is another point, and this one is really quite personal to me. Since I upload tutorials and speed paints on this channel, I feel like I have to be on a good enough level to be worthy of uploading on YouTube and worthy of teaching to other artists. This is something I've noticed very recently when the subscriber count grew to 2,000 subscribers or something. In order to change this, I try not to care about these numbers and try not to put any expectations on how good my art is supposed to look. But, well, that's a bit of a personal problem. Actually, now that I think about it, if you have a following on social media, on any social media platform, you might put high expectations on yourself to always deliver the best art possible. That might be a problem as well. Anyways, this is a video about fighting art blocks, so the advice I was trying to get across just now was, don't put expectations on your art. Just try to enjoy the process of drawing. At least you should enjoy the majority of time spent drawing. I think it's impossible to always feel happy about your art. As a last point for this video, if you don't enjoy drawing right now and nothing really helps, then how about you just stop drawing for a while? I know this sounds quite radical, and you probably feel quite the aversion to the idea of quitting art. That is because oftentimes artists define their personality by being an artist. When naming a hobby, most of us would probably answer, I'm an artist. We've probably also been praised for being talented. Casting away all of that feels like losing a part of yourself. That just now sounded quite deep, but I think it really is like that. But I'm not saying you have to quit drawing for the rest of your life. But maybe the way to beat an extreme art block is to just put away the pen for a while and only pick it up again when you feel like you really want to draw something again. At least that is what worked for me. In 2022 I didn't draw anything for a couple of months, and it felt like I was a failure as an artist because I didn't draw. All of that wasted talent and all. But after a few months I had the urge to draw something again, after reading that one comic that really inspired me. And since then I've been drawing again. What also really helps me getting through art blocks is knowing that this is something a lot of artists experience. Everyone has some issues in their lives that may rob them of their motivation to draw, and I feel like just knowing you're not the only one is helpful already. For example, I will enter college in a few months, and there is a lot of other stuff I could do instead of working multiple hours on one drawing. So drawing just feels kinda pointless. Although I know I should be drawing for the sake of fun, I'm an adult and the responsibilities in my life will only keep on increasing from now on. Even this YouTube channel could be considered time that is spent badly. My childhood dream was to earn money with YouTube, but this account well, I'm still far from it right now, and even if I earned money with it, it would be maybe $50 per month, which would not at all help with paying rent and all that. Now, I've whined a lot about my current issues with art, but why did I include this part in the video? I think I just want to show that pretty much every artist has these kinds of things they struggle with. At least I'm pretty sure about that. And I feel like knowing that I'm not the only one with these issues somehow makes me feel more at rest. I'm more relaxed knowing that there are many more like me and perhaps you. All of this probably sounded really deep just now, but it really isn't that deep. It's just some of my thoughts on this topic, and formulating it into sentences just made it sound really depressing, which wasn't really my intention. Anyways, I hope that amidst all my rambling about this topic, you found something useful or some food for your own thoughts. Thanks for listening, and bye.